all of you. My name is Joanna Inglot. I'm Chair of Art and Art History Department. And I would like to welcome you to the inaugural lecture of Ruthann Godollei as the new DeWitt Wallace Professor of Art. In a few minutes, Ruthann will give a lecture entitled Object Lesson. But before that, President Rosenberg, who unfortunately cannot be here with us tonight, asked that I said a few words of introduction on his behalf. And I am honored and pleased to do so, not just as chair, but also as Ruthann's friend. Many Macalester community members know Ruthann Godollei as a thought-provoking artist and as an exceptional teacher and mentor. Others know her through her dedicated service to our community and our college, in roles such as chair of the EPEG or the Faculty Advisory Council. But even people who are new to Macalester and not yet familiar with Ruthann's immense contributions know her. Or at least they know her car. That signature style, hand-stenciled, green 1984 Volvo. Who could not notice that? But this is just one of many examples of how art is so wholeheartedly integrated into every corner of Ruthann's life. Ruthann has been committed to social justice advocacy from an early age, and she always links civic engagement with her art. She incorporates political and social commentary into her work that constantly pushes boundaries and challenges the viewers. She began her study of printmaking at Indiana University, and she earned the Masters of Fine Arts from the University of Minnesota. Ruthann's work has been exhibited extensively around the world and in the United States, and is in many renowned collections of art, and you can see the list of that right in this brochure. In Belgium, in Poland, in Estonia, in Malaysia, just a few countries to name. In 2009, she co-authored the book entitled Roadshow, Art Cars in the Museums of the Street. In 2003, Voyageur Press published her book on do-it-yourself printmaking techniques. This one comes with much longer and perhaps more specialized title that reads, How to create your own geek posters, band t-shirts, album covers and stickers, screen printing, photocopy art, mixed media collage, and other guerrilla poster styles. That's Ruthann. Ruthann's art practice enhances her teaching, and her teaching enhances her art. And over 25 years in the Art and Art History Department, she has become known as a passionate teacher who inspires her students to think critically and teaches them how to express themselves and their ideas about art, about world through art. And next to her well-known printmaking classes, Ruthann teaches courses such as Descent, Studio, Senior Seminar, and in the past she also taught Women in Art and Images in Consumer Society, among many others. She has served as a department chair and as Dean of Fine Arts Division, and she will resume being chair of Art and Art History Department this summer. Last year, I'd like to mention, in recognition of her outstanding teaching, she received the college's Thomas Jefferson Award. And these are just a few of things that I could pull together for this short introduction. So please join me in congratulating DeWitt Wallace Professor of Art, Ruthann Godollei, for this richly deserved honor.
Thank you, Joanna. That was really beautiful. So I start with a quote. Jacques Rancière was talking about surrealism, but also about lived art. Thank you all for coming. thanks to my excellent colleagues, the members of the Art and Art History Department, my wonderful students who I love. Thanks for the chance to let me tell you a bit about myself as an artist, scholar, printmaker, teacher, person. Being the only print teacher at Macalester, I have a repertoire of many printing processes, if not most of them. Relief printing in linoleum, woodcut, letterpress with movable type, a la Gutenberg. Intaglio, including etching and engraving and direct metal processes. Lithography, printed from stones, plastic plates, metal plates. Screen print, which you might know as silk screening. And digital processes. I like to keep old machines running. I like my motorcycle, my antique Volvo, and my printing presses. I built a camera obscura in my backyard out of the cartographer's lens from a B-52. I love history, I love strange museums, I love books. Real tangible objects. I love intangible words, language, word games, and you probably know I have a sort of a dark imagination. So, we'll start with my specialty. So this is a screen print recently acquired by the Minnesota Museum of American Art. It pleased me enormously. This is the one they wanted. My work involves the juxtaposition of text and images in a large part. The text and the image don't necessarily have anything to do with each other. I'm creating this experiment, the surrealists called the chance meeting of an umbrella and a sewing machine on an operating table. Right? You have to, the art part takes place in your imagination, and that's why the backgrounds are generally blank, white or black. I'm making you juxtapose the text with the image, and then something happens, right? I like to think something happens that I have some say in, but it's, you know, it's open-ended and it's culturally dependent. And so many artists for a long time were interested in things that weren't so specific, but I've been quite interested in the uses and abuses of language and words in my time. And I think that's one of the artifacts of living today, that words change their meanings in context. Right? So this is a monoprint with screen print, and it's from a series I made of an entire alternative vocabulary of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The words they started to use around the war, that the government used and the military used, became changed as the media, which, by the way, was embedded, began to pick them up, right? So the word surge, as the authorities used it, meant a surge of troops, and this policy was supposed to end the war quickly. We'll send a surge of troops, and then the war will end sooner. And this was many years back, right? And all I could think of when I heard the word surge is more troops means more blood, more dying, and on both sides, you know? So I got kind of grim about it and decided to like splash it back in their face, you know? The them, right? Surge doesn't mean what it meant before somebody started using it that way, right? And I'm just trying to have it be more explicit. So, I took all those strange little phrases. The extended tour, a euphemism for sending somebody back to the front who's already finished surgery, right? And you hear it used all the time, extended tour. You know, I showed this at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts at the MAP gallery, and I had the mother of a veteran come tell me at my artist talk that her son had seen it. He's in a wheelchair, and he said, thank God somebody's calling it like it is. And she said he told her to extend his thanks to me, which made me feel incredibly grateful. I don't mean this disrespectfully to troops. I think disrespectful of a troop, any member of the military, is extending their tour without their agreeing to it, right? Yeah, what you're asking them to do, and then what that commits them to if they become disabled as a result. There's nobody in the chair, right? I didn't want to pick a particular member of the military, particular branch of the service, particular person, race, age, color, gender. I wanted this to be whoever could be in that chair as a result of that policy. So this was my nod to the universal, if I could manage it. And sometimes I got really grim. I drive in the airport quite frequently, and you know, there's Fort Snelling graveyard is right outside the Humphrey Terminal, and it's rows and rows and rows and rows of ever-growing amounts of gravestones. And the policy of troop reduction is supposed to be a drawdown in how many people go, but you know, it's taking too long, and what's actually happening is the troops are reducing. So, I look to artists I respect for this kind of imaginary, and somebody who does it expertly, of course, is Otto Dietz, the German artist who was a grunt in World War I for the German side, signed up, you know, thought he was going to be patriotic and enlist, and he ended up seeing the horror of the first mechanized war, the first industrial war, gas in the trenches, and he did an incredible series called Der Krieg. It was amazing. It was from 1924, and it showed the trench-eye view of corpses, barbed wire, you know, the idea that the human cost of the war, you know, even to the people fighting it, is unbelievable and hidden from the public that promotes it. So this is a corpse tangled in barbed wire, an etching from, as I said, 1924. Dietz came back, published this series, and the Nazis declared his art degenerate, and he was dismissed in 1933 from his Dresden art professorship. They said, quote, "Apart from the fact that some of your paintings are a gross offense to moral feeling, and therefore a danger to moral regeneration, you have also made pictures that are liable to impair the will to defend ourselves." So, if only, right? If only, you know, the pictures are that powerful. It's not okay to say war's bad, even if you've been in it for your country. And so, I think his courage in doing this was incredible. After I finished that series about the war, with occasional still call to do some more of them, I made another vocabulary. This time it was of the recession. There's weird words. Yeah, you can take out the Wall Street Journal and read it, and there's all these very odd terms used to talk about the crisis, and they don't actually talk very much about human cost. There's a lot of sort of euphemistic words. So downsizing was one of them. This is a model print. My research shows that 1.6 million American children right now are homeless. Most of those children are under the age of 7. It's shocking. It's like unbelievable, and no one's screaming about it. So I got a commission from the Minneapolis Family Housing Fund. They do incredibly good work, and it's underknown. They provide housing. They try and buy housing. They try and promote housing. They try and influence the legislature to make housing for homeless people and low-income people. And I applied for commission from them to make artwork along the theme of homelessness and family housing. On the jury was the wonderful artist Tacumba Aiken. Many of you know. He's done a beautiful mural for us in Markham Hall. And when I walked into the room, he goes, "Oh, the great R.A." I said, "What?" He goes, "We hired other people to do the hooray, we got a house story. And yes, you know, here's our new home. But we're hiring you for kick the bastards in the shins. There's a problem, you jerks, more needs to be done." So I said, I'm up for that job. So I was going down the grocery store at, you know, those all-night groceries, and they have a baby food aisle, and there's little bibs, and they say things like, "I'm gonna be a race car driver when I grow up," or I'm gonna be a princess, you know. Yeah, and tons of children are gonna be homeless. And I felt like a ghoul. I bought one of the pink and blue bibs, and I studied it carefully and tried really hard to make it convincing as a fluffy item, and just imagine this thing embroidered on there instead. It's touring right now. Family Housing Fund liked what I did, and they've toured it to the state capitol on days where they're advocating. The Wilder Foundation has shown it, and the McKnight Foundation continues to tour it. So it's a tool to help people remember there's a problem. And remember there's a problem, right? That's kind of the big problem. Mean people suck. That's one of the big problems. Somebody who's a master of talking about mean people is Francisco Goya, one of my favorite artists who works in print and painting. This is Mala Mujer. It's a drawing from 1803, and I got to see it in the Louvre. I had a wonderful sabbatical. I went to the print and drawing room at the Louvre, and it's an incredible place. There's these mahogany tables with lion feet. You're by the Seine. The room is filled with beautiful light, and someone in a white lab coat walks up and says, "What would you like to see today, madam?" and I said, "Show me something awful. Show me your worst." And they were very, very gracious. There's a whole set of drawings of Goya. There's Millet's drawings of the poor. There's Karanak's nightmarish visions from the Middle Ages. They were just fantastic, wonderful things to see, and rejuvenated my taste for this kind of work. Goya, of course, has a series of very, very dark work. The Black Paintings, if you've ever been to Madrid. His series, The Disasters of War, which I feel directly influenced my war series. And Los Caprichos, we might say caprices, but hardly. They're much more like nightmares. And at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, there's an incredible full presentation copy of Los Caprichos, bound as it was in Goya's day, done in his day, and I've taken many, many students there to go see it. He has captions, and they're usually really stark and funny, and they're full of puns and kind of mean. and so his use of text is often edited out when you see them in books, but even on the bottom here, there's drawing, writing that says, "Mala Mujer, bad woman." I did a whole series of domestic violence work as well, and I'm not going to show you that today. But the idea that somebody should show it, there are many other artists I admire who do much different work than I do, and I just feel like my job is to use my dark imagination. And maybe when they stop the war, and maybe when they stop, hurting children, I'll get to do sunsets and flowers. but at the moment. Not so much. I am a lucky traveler, a world traveler. I get to go to a lot of places as a result of my job and my resources. And I was on the Faculty International Development Seminar in The Hague. Several of you here were also on it. A wonderful program Macalester did. I got to stay in a nice hotel in The Hague, right? And there's people from all over the world there in the first place, but also the workers are from all over the world. The Gastarbeiters, the guest workers who clean stuff, clean the streets, clean the hotel rooms, vacuum, wash windows. They do the worst jobs, the dirtiest work, and they get paid the least, and they get treated with the least respect. So you go into a hotel and there'll be a little sign, up saying, "Dear guest, how may we help you? What can we do to make your stay more enjoyable?" And that really struck me as we heard on this seminar how immigrants are treated. And so I just thought, who's the guest? And how do we treat our guests? And this is true in the United States, of course, as well. Our hotel workers, often getting put in as illegal immigrants and then shuttled out the minute the immigration shows up. So happy to use somebody who's a cheap laborer until the law says, "Oh no." This is an etching. And then I think about about the policymakers of those no-no-knowers to the immigrants. I made this print for the Tea Party. It's a little bit of direct agitation, but I really felt like the little, the tea bags come with little sayings on them, or fortunes, and so this one says, none for you. This summer, I got to go on a wonderful program called Travels in Type. We were at several different letterpress museums across Europe, the Tipoteca Italiana outside of Venice on the mainland, a wonderful print and letterpress museum, and the Druckladen at the Gutenberg Museum outside of Mainz, or inside of Mainz. And while there, I asked the printers who worked at each of these places to tell me the words they used for the global recession. And they had a bunch, so I used that for my project to typeset the letters. And so we have Italian, we have German, we have English, and I have there's a whole series of these things. I did them in Spanish when we went to Madrid. But also the print nerd in me loved the double letters. There was this beautiful wood font with these double letters all tacked onto each other and hand carved. And they were the most beautiful things. So I was saying, do you have words that use double letters? And one of the printers was like, Asopar, like the hunchback? I was like, yes, the economy's crippled. I said, do you say that? He goes, oh yes, we do. And so we had a wonderful, discussion about language and meaning and how people talk about things hitting them really, really hard, right? The recession has hit worldwide and very desperately. And my friend Kirina Cordela suggested, as the recession hit in Greece, that I do something for the Greeks. So this piece, Austerity, the belt of austerity, tightened beyond belief, is a screen print I made in dialogue with her. It's one of my latest prints in some ways. There's no more notches to tighten. And it applies to austerity measures the world over as the so-called first world starts to tighten its latches on the debtor nations, right? So I decided that this might be better as an animation, or different as an animation. So we hope that this technology is going to work. Khaldun Saman, we did a beautiful darbuka drumming for the soundtrack for that. I had been thinking about immigration, and I've been thinking about my grandparents who are immigrants to this country from Hungary. And I made this screen print for a portfolio I organized called the Tower of Babel. It was for an impact conference in Tallinn, Estonia. Impact's the big international printmaking conference. When I heard that the city of Lino Lakes, Minnesota, enacted an English-only law, even though they've never had to translate a single government document into another language. The city of Lino Lakes is, according to the census, 98% Anglo-Caucasian. But of course, they claimed it was to save money, and this was the thing. This is about austerity. This isn't about prejudice against immigrants, right? So I made them an image of the Rosetta Stone, and I asked colleagues and students and friends who spoke languages other than English to tell me how you say in your language, "You're not welcome here," right? So, we have, for example, Arabic, again, thanks to Khaldun. In Tagalog, thanks to Karina Aguilar San Juan. In modern Greek, thanks to Karina Cordella. And for Hmong, I called up the state representative, Sai Tao, the first Hmong representative for the state of Minnesota, and I asked him if he would help me with this project, and he assigned me a staffer, and I said, "How do you say this in Hmong?" He says, "It's really rude." I said, "Yes, that's the idea. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, and I'm sorry if anybody ever said this to you." And there's many more languages in there. So hooray for our wonderful multilingual Macalester. I got lots of them to put on the Rosetta Stone. And to get the image of the Rosetta Stone, there is a very funny story. I knew I wanted the image of the actual stone. The stuff online is really rather bad. I was in London and visiting with a friend who, I said, "Will you go to it's in the British Museum. Will you go with me to the museum?" She said, "Oh, I've been there a million times. It's open late tonight. I'd rather go to the Victoria and Albert. And so come with me to that and I'll drop you off at the tube stop near the British Museum afterwards." Great. So just about 5 till 6 p.m., I get out of the tube, I go to the British Museum. They're not open late. They're closing, and all the big doors are getting shuttered with a dramatic clang. And I think, oh, well, at least maybe I could get a postcard or a poster. I go to the postcard kiosk, shh, they're shutting that. I'm like, what am I gonna do? I need this for this project. As I'm walking out, and they're herding all the people out, I see down the coat check room, there's a person, but they're pulling the shutter in front of their face, and they can't see. And what I know is at the other end of the coat check room is the start of the Egyptian wing. And what I see is there's a giant bronze door propped open by a trash can. So I very quietly walked to that door, pushed it open and looked, and the lights were still on and there was no one there, and I thought, artistic license. So I go in, I have to imagine where I'd be if I was the Rosetta Stone. Somewhere central, and sure enough, where the most lights are, there it is. It's rather big. I had no idea how huge it is. And I took photos, and right next to the sign that says no photos, and then I crept back out, and I get back to the door, past all the sarcophagi and the beautiful Egyptian sculptures, and there's no one at that door. The trash can's still there. I back out. I think if anybody stops me, I'll just say, "Oh, you're closing? I didn't know." And I walk, by now all the lights are out. And I'm walking towards where I think the front door is, and there's a lone guard who tips his cap and says, "Night, Mum." We thank them for letting me use their image. And so then I thought this project could go a little further. I used a laser stencil cutter. I made the image into digital vector graphics, and I used a laser stencil cutter to actually cut it into black granite. And I'm going to hand this to you, Carrie. Or no, I'll let you. Hannah, if you pass this around. Here's a mini version of my Rosetta Stone. I made a whole bunch of them. I considered taking the big one. There is a big one. And I considered it taking it, grandstanding to City Hall, showing up at a council meeting, or, going to the public library and insisting that they take it as a gift and not tell them what it said. Because you might notice it doesn't have, the only English it has on there is English only laws, right? One friend said, "Oh, tell them it's biblical." But I thought that it would kind of be grandstanding and kind of make it about me, and I wanted to make it about the issue, and I thought about the issue in terms of time. So I made a whole bunch of these little ones, and I left them all over the city of Lima Lakes. I left them in public parks, I left them at the golf course, I left them anywhere I could think of. I threw one into the drainage ditch right next door to City Hall. So if there's any archaeologists in the future that are going to dig up that place, they'll know somebody had an objection to this policy, right? And I thought, let history judge them, right? I think they're wrong. I wrote in and said, I think you're wrong as a citizen, but I have another means at my disposal, and that's the dimension of time. And so making something in permanent materials is awfully seductive, right? And gave me a lot of pleasure. Immigration. My good friend Doug Padilla, Javier Tavera, organized a show called El Milagro. I was in it with Tina Tavera, wonderful work. And so when I was asked to participate in this, I was really happy to do it. And this piece is my Milagro, my miracle. And I think, what would be a miracle if someone cut holes in that fence down at the border with Mexico? Or if you were trying to cross borders, finding a hole in the fence would be a miracle indeed. And so I made this monoprint and showed it there. And this has had some extensive traveling. I sent it to a show on the theme of democracy in New York City, and it survived Hurricane Sandy on the second floor of a gallery in Chelsea. When Chelsea was completely underwater, just so happens this gallery is on the second floor. So this thing came back to me in one piece. I'm very happy. And then recently, it's the cover of Wang Ping's book of poems called 10,000 Ways on the theme of immigration. So there's a lot of use this is getting put to, and I'm very happy about that. Someone who influences me, the wonderful Mexican woodcut artist Artemio Rodriguez. And Artemio did this in 2010. It's the dictator of the 1880s of Mexico, Porfirio Diaz, as a piñata. He's being whacked, and out is coming democracy and power and some sweets and dinero. Yeah, and the people are scooping them up. This thing is enormous, it's beautiful, and one of our wonderful students, Aurelio Vargas, got to help him print. And one really great thing about teaching at Macalester, there were tons of print students over at the U of M, but we have bilingual print students, right? And so for me to be able to send them Aurelio, who was already an expert printer, it was just a pleasure. And we showed this work at our gallery as part of a national conference in printmaking. I'm struck by the tiny, tiny words for huge, huge disasters. I don't understand how you can have such a short word. Spill is this glass of water, spills some milk. That's not what happened in the Gulf, with the giant oil spill. I just can't even imagine we have words big enough for that. Yeah, we use words like leak for Fukushima, right? It's a little tiny word, and it's going to last, what, 10,000 years? And we're saying, oh, it's leaking. Yeah. Just today in the Mac Weekly, I saw that people were discussing the Alberta Clipper, and they're not talking about winter, right? The Alberta Clipper is the giant pipeline that comes down to us from Canada carrying oil. I was born in Indiana when the city of Gary was dark at noon from pollution from the steel mills. I mean, it's crazy. You had to turn your lights on to drive through that city. Now, I'm in a state that's extracting its Mississippi River sand to use to frack oil and gas elsewhere. And this 300-mile Canadian tar sands pipeline is really underknown. It has a record of ruptures and leaks that hardly ever get reported or commented on. A train carrying Canadian oil derailed in western Minnesota, spilling 30,000 gallons of crude oil in 2013. And 12,000 gallons of crude oil spilled from a rail car between Winona and Red Wing in February 3rd of this year. And are we hearing about it? Is it how do you clean up 30,000 or 12,000 gallons of this stuff, And it's right by the Mississippi, and it's going into the water table. Like I said, I have a lot of material, unfortunately, for my Imaginary. Jim Stewart, professor here interested in slavery, including modern-day slavery, asked me to do a piece for the Million Hoodies March. And when Trayvon Martin, the unarmed 17-year-old, got shot by George Zimmerman in Sanford, Florida in 2012. So I thought I would do it again, without his face in there. I wanted it to be just like the Million Hoodies March ideas, like that could be anybody's kid, that could be anybody. The gesture is one of prayer, but also borrowed from funerary sculpture. I saw this years ago in the Old Shawnee Cemetery in Prague. And it strikes me as such an interesting blend of like a pietà, piety and pity and repose, but also resignation. So I borrowed the gesture. Lately, I've been very interested in surveillance. The vigilanteism connected to this idea of somebody's watching, somebody with a gun is watching, somebody with a drone is watching, somebody with the ability to hurt somebody by remote control is watching, with no accountability, right? They've been killing civilians lately. Oops, it's just all a mistake. So I've just been doing kind of an inventory of surveillance devices in my contemporary world. And this one is the Calavera de la Vigilancia, the skeleton of surveillance. It's a Day of the Dead skeleton I made as a lithograph in honor of J.G. Posada, the wonderful Mexican printmaker who I love. It's his 100th anniversary, and so I got invited to a portfolio in homage to him. And so this one's currently touring Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras, and it's a wonderful trade portfolio as well. You make prints, you send them, and you get back a set as well. So there's this really cool thing that printing can do. The skeleton is watching other skeletons, like all Day of the Dead skeletons do. The skeletons do amusing things like, you can see them getting held up at the ATM, right? You can see them at the laundromat getting spied on in traffic, right? All the spy cameras are on the traffic. And at the very bottom right, there's the airport, which I thought it would be very amusing to have a skeleton go through a body scanner. I thought Posada might be amusing. So there's a whole little series of, these are actual portraits of actual cameras I run into in my walks, and there's tons of them, so I just showed you a couple here. Sometimes the constant surveillance, the doing, feeling like it's my job to comment on misbehavior and ugly things makes me feel rather morose, and they do say Hungarians are melancholy. So I have a little animation here that I would call a self-portrait. Let's see if we can make it work. That scratchy noise was my grandmother's Hungarian 78 record. And I got to play the wind-up Victrola when I was a kid. It was something we loved to do, another old machine, it was really fantastic. And I found Macalester was tossing its last 78 player, and it had lines out, because it used to be plugged into speakers and things, like audio-visual systems, like this fancy one. You youngsters wait about 20 years and then come back for this stuff, right? It's gonna be great. So I was able to use the lines out to put the thing in my computer and record it and use it as a soundtrack, and so a little homage to my melancholy grandparents. My students, who I mentioned, are fantastic. They make me want to come back every day. Here we are printing anti-war patches and giving them away on the front of the campus center. We wheeled a hospital gurney out in front and used it for a table. This is just one of the actions that was featured in the book by Beverly Vedas, Arts for Social Change. So I was very happy to include my students. There's Gretchen Keeling and Andrew Meeker and many other wonderful students who decided on this project. It's not like I come in and say, we're going to do anti-war work. I'm like, what would you like to say to the public? And on that class, on those days, it was, what can we say about the war? So it was an agreed upon project, and then we used printing to make it happen. We have a lot of these print giveaways in printmaking class at Macalester. I had inherited this wonderful project where every Print 1 student takes their best print, editions it in multiples of the number of the people in class, and they trade it with their colleagues. They get to walk out of school with a giant stack of art, and they leave one with the college. So we have a record of everybody who ever took Print 1 going back to the start of the art department. To me, this is a fantastic idea. In addition, Print 2 students have this requirement where they have to send work out into the outside world. And lots of them fulfill this requirement by doing it for things that benefit others. We've had people send prints to sales that might benefit Cycles for Change, which teaches youngsters how to repair bicycles and make a living, AIDS benefits, veterans groups, wildlife sanctuaries, and recently the Art for Shelter auction, which benefits Simpson Family Housing Services. For the last 2 years, and this one's coming up April 30th, at the Burnett Gallery at the Chambers Hotel. There's a one-night auction. Each piece is $30, and they sign them on the back, so you don't know if you're getting somebody famous or somebody just starting. You just select work because you like it. And all the proceeds go to support the Simpson Family House. So, if you're in Minneapolis, April 30th, consider going to that auction. It's a wonderful cause, and our students' work will be featured there. The agitator, right? So here is the great Kathy Kulvitz, with Outbreak, Wolfsbruck, from 1903, etching that is from the series The Peasants' War, or The Peasants' Rebellion. It's historically depicting the mistreated serfs of 1525 who took up arms against the feudal masters, urged on by this character called Black Hannah. She's the radical idea and the spirit of this revolution, and I see myself growing into this role more and more. Kulvitz had the idea to use history to talk about her own times. She lived through World War I and II, lost a son and then a grandson to these world wars, and became an ardent pacifist. She also had to step down from her professorship, pressured by the Nazis, but continued her work, highly interested in stopping war, in commenting on the civilian cost to war, regardless of what side you're on. And the other thing I think is very interesting is that she also, I found out, contributed prints to causes like orphaned youth from the war. So she would give her prints to be sold to help support other things. And that's something you can do with a print. There's one you can keep and one you can give away, and it's nearly magic that there's this property. You wanted to mention my book. It's out in 2013. I did think of this as part of trying to be generous. It's like not everybody can afford Macalester tuition. What if you just want to learn how to print? on your own? Or what if you get out of Macalester and you don't want to put a printing press in your living room, like me, bedroom? It's not the living room. Second bedroom, okay? So it's got a very long name. The publisher said that was so that it could cover every search, right? So if somebody's looking up, photocopier, got it. Yeah, it wasn't my idea, but I really enjoyed making it. My students were the hand models and the demonstrators. It covers things like how to use your car as a printing press, or how to use a copy machine to make positives for silkscreens, things like that. Okay, last few things I'm going to discuss are some public art projects. May 10th, I'll have work in the We Are Water exhibit at the Soap Factory. This is a wonderful project, part of the Kinship of Rivers ongoing project. Carlton Macy will be doing music with the Chinese ensemble there. Wang Ping, and Macalester's new theater member, Kanta Kachar Lindgren, will be doing a water piece. So if you want an introduction to her work, please come for that at the Soap Factory in Minneapolis. This is a printing project at Northern Spark in St. Paul. Northern Spark is an all-night art festival that takes over the city, dawn to dusk, and involves hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of projects and thousands of people. Last year, MAC alums and I set up a working print shop in the Amtrak waiting room at the Union Depot, which wasn't accepting trains yet. So it was an incredible sight, and we got to wheel presses in, and what we asked the public to do was pick an arrow and think of a destination that you always wanted to go, or an aspiration, something you always wanted to do, or something you never want to go back to, right? So there are some negative ones. And then we would print it for them on the spot, and they got one to keep, and we put one up on a destination kiosk in the train station, so highly appropriate. And we estimate we printed 2,000 of them. Yeah. So all night long, people were in kiosks, many people were helping us, Andrew Graham, many of our students were there helping us print, and it was just such a wonderful thing, this giveaway project, this idea that people like souvenirs and they like thinking about places. And we had lots of people from other countries come and say, oh, could you do my country? Could you do my city? Could you do, where I'm from? And yes, 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 So, yeah, little kids most wanted Hogwarts. But the spot that I made for me, I don't know if you can read this, but Printland is the name of the country that is our printmaking studio, and you're all welcome to come visit that. And with that, I'll end my talk. So thank you so much.
A customary gift from the president that will be rolled in, and we will have an official unveiling and presentation. So let's wait.
Well, are there any questions while we're waiting? There don't have to be. Yes, Mr. Godollei.
What's your dream project?
Oh, man. Well, it's the one I'm working on now. I want to see if I can do every surveillance camera I ever saw, right? And there's some weird ones, like the sink surveils your hands. There's my computer now. Apparently, the Brits have figured out a way to make it watch you back. If your computer has a camera on it, it's like no. So. Yeah, there's quite a few more than I ever thought. Keystroke watchers on your, so I got years of work if I just stick with that. Yeah, and I had a high school art teacher was like, your best project is your next one. So yeah, I hope I live to do lots more better ideas than that. But that's the one I got. Yeah. Oh my God. It took, so lucky for me, I'm a chronic insomniac. And it took me about 3 months, and I only slept a little bit. And I would work from about 10 at night till about 3 in the morning, you know, every single night for 3 months for like that prickly one. They're an incredible amount of work. It's, you know, 24 frames a second, and then you're doing a drawing, altering it, drawing it, altering it. Computers help, but they're not doing the drawing for you. So I would make a print, scan it in, scan in the parts, and collage on the computer, and then move it, and then have to compile it. And so it's pretty labor intensive. They're short because they're so labor intensive. That's a dream project. I would like to get funds to do a much longer animation. I think I really could do it, and I would need some technical help. Yeah. Yes? Hello?
What's your next trip?
What's my next trip? Let's see. I want to go to Argentina. Proyecto Ace in Buenos Aires has a wonderful print shop, and I'm asking them if I can come. Wow. They like you to have a community portion to your project that you do there, and I'm like, oh, I think I could do it. Yeah. Yes.
As a contemporary art historian, I always think about how to locate an artist like you in the broader scheme of things. And I wonder, what is it you think about contemporary political arts in the United States of America? And are you satisfied with it?
Yeah, I think I wish there was more. Yeah, I wish there was more. It isn't like, I don't think everybody should do this. I don't think somebody who's, you know, wants to do something else, please do that. Like, people should do what they're good at, what they care about, what they feel strongly about, what they love. You know, there's no way I want my students cloning me. I want them to do their projects that they care about. And that includes whether they choose to do political art or not. And for me, I just feel the need to. So it's a necessity for me. There's this incredible quote from an Eisman that says, to do art, it must be necessary, therefore, increase your idea of what's necessary. You know? It's like, yeah. So I wish some people would increase their idea of the necessary. But there's some wonderful political artists, like wonderful political artists. And you know, my friend Jenny Schmidt has an incredible series of utopias, dystopias that I think are fantastic commentaries on situations today. There's Artemio Rodriguez divides his time between Mexico and America. There's Sue Ko, who's a transported Brit, fantastic work, like really, really fantastic. I mean, there's a ton of people doing the work. So just, you know, there's so much to say. That's the problem. There's like so many things. So. One of my friends once said, where are you in the great scheme of things? And she said, we are the great scheme. so that's it.
Any other questions?
Oh!
An official unveiling of a, I guess, traditional gift for the Inaugural. So could you keep on for a rocking chair. There's a plaque in the back, and Ruthann, would you please take a seat and let's rock it. Actually, you rock yourself.
I'll rock myself. I spelled my name right. I'm so thrilled. I hope this isn't a hint about retiring early. Thank you so much.
And there's one more gift from our department for all the amazing green hoodies in appreciation not only of the politics, but your aesthetic choice as well.
Thank you. snacks, so please come join us and have a toast and have some good food. Cheers.